Hi friends, this is Jennifer Belair Sakarian with Open Hearts Club, and I am joining you from yet another incredibly gorgeous day today here in Michigan. It's incredible just watching the blue sky and hanging out by the mulberry tree again, and I have an iced cacao, so I'm especially excited today. Today I want to talk about, again, my own personal experience and this message that has been wanting to be told, this story that's been wanting to be told. And as someone who really loves to write and speak and share things, this has been a story in the making, and it's part of my life, and I'm sure it's going to resonate and connect with you in some way. So I'm excited to share. It's kind of piggybacking off of last week's episode of thinking about negative thought patterns, and the story / beautiful phrasing that I'm excited to share is the light you always carry, the love you always carry, the light I always carry. It's been something that's I'm thinking about a lot. It seems to be a present theme in my life, and sorry, I have a fly navigating my head. But it's an important thing to think about, and it's an important thing to notice about yourself and the way you carry yourself in the world. And so the reason this story comes up, or this phrase comes up, is because there was a situation this summer where I was reminded of this. And sometimes we need a constant reminder to tell us, hey, you, human, you have a beautiful light, a beautiful soul, something inside of you that is really going to make an impact if you are aware enough of it. And so I had this situation where it was like 2 days in a row, I just could not get out of a funk. Like, I was deep in the funk. It was not fun. It was not pretty. It was very human, and it's normal, so I don't want to discount that. But I was just going through this kind of difficult not a plateau, but like a plateau going downwards. So I don't know what we call that. But I was then stuck in the mud, stuck in the rut, and just couldn't get out of it. I have all my tricks and my tools and some things that I'm going to share with you today, and I just was really struggling, and thankfully it was only 2 days, because I've had some in the past where they seem to last for quite some time. And this was like 2 days, and I was in this little rut, just like thinking negatively. I could not get out of it. I was like trying to do all the things that make me feel good, and there would be glimpses of hope and goodness and all this stuff, but it just was a hard one to get out of. So I'm sharing that from the perspective that even though I'm sharing insights and tools, I'm not always in this like perfect state of mind where everything is beautiful, sunshine and rainbows, etc. Days are difficult sometimes, and it's a very human experience to go through. But what essentially happened was, on the third day, I was like, it's a new day. I'm waking up. I'm starting this day fresh. I'm going to let go. And I was doing all the different exercises that I've been learning on my journey, like even doing kind of physical things, like imagining like this is like the ball of negative energy, and just like blowing it out of the picture, like getting it out of the space. So there's a lot of fun things you can do. You can like try to, wipe off the negative energy from your physical body, from your auric field, etc. So I was doing all the things, and on the third day I was like, I'm not doing this. Today's a good day. I'm going to look at the day with a fresh perspective, to just be open, to not have any expectations. And so I dropped my to-do list, because I think that's a big root of why I feel a lot of anxiety, is just like I have so many things I would love to do, I want to do, I have to do, etc. So I was like, I'm just going to drop this. And so I got ready for like my daily routine for that particular day, which was a Wednesday. And that was going to the grocery store. So I was like, okay, I'm going to interact with other people. I have a chance to kind of reinvent myself and my energy in this moment. And so I put on some different clothes that I don't normally wear. Typically I'm around the house or in the garden, and I'm wearing yoga clothes or like workout clothes. And I was like, I'm going to just change something about my environment to help lift my spirits. And so I felt really good. I felt beautiful, even with like some simple clothes that I had gotten from the Goodwill. I was like, this is like a little bit of an energy shift, like a secret shift, which is what we'll talk about later. But I put on this outfit. I went to the farmer's market, and I just felt good. I felt good in my body. I felt good in my presence. I was like really had that intention. Again, something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I was like, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to make it a good day. I'm going to do what I can to make it a good day. And so I feel like just that intention planted a beautiful little seed where I felt a little bit more radiant. I felt joyful. I felt all the feelings, the good feelings. And even though I knew that they were still there, this little negative rut, I decided to focus more on the positive side of it. So I went to the farmer's market, and I went to my favorite places, an organic farm stand, and the woman complimented me. She's like, wow, you look really cute. Like your outfit's really, really nice. And I was like, oh, that's nice to hear, and so it was just like a good reminder of kind of the blessings that we can create with our words, and they don't always have to be about what we look like, of course, but that's nice for people to hear. It can be about their character, about their presence, about their energy. But for me, that was the example that had manifested in my day that day. So that was really cool. And that was like a little, like, if it's like a video game, it was like a little power up, like in Mario, like I got a mushroom, and that was great. So I was like, ooh, I feel good. And then I went to I went to Trader Joe's, and just nice, good interactions. I noticed that I was feeling a little bit more positive, and so when I checked out, instead of not having a conversation, I was like, I should try to have a conversation and just say something, even if it might not seem that interesting. So I was like, oh, how are you today? And it's really nice out, and I'm excited to try this new goodie from Trader Joe's. So it was like, another little action that I put into play. And I knew it wasn't just for me, but it could be for the other person. So I was thinking back to that instance at the farmer's market where she essentially spoke a blessing to me. And so I was like, how can I speak a blessing to this human here? And so I did that. I tried. I'm not sure the outcome or the impact, but it felt nice on my end, and it felt like a good way to connect. And then last but not least, I made it to Whole Foods to pick up some Greek yogurt, and I checked out, and then I had to return something as well. So I was leaving, and then I came back to check out, and I was feeling good. I was excited because I was noticing there was this older gentleman kind of in the vicinity, and he was like really like buoyant and bouncy and like trying to figure things out. He was going to purchase something, and he just couldn't quite figure it out. So I stood in line to return something, and he had been figuring his thing out, and he had such a big energy that I couldn't help but to be like, what's he doing? He's interesting. I can't look away. And he seems happy. And so I was feeling his energy where I was like, whoa, this is nice. This is fun. And so I went up to the counter, and the woman's like, oh, there's someone in front of you who's just over there. And I was like, oh, it's that guy. And then I waited, and then he it's kind of like a cartoon. Like he came walking up, and he was just so happy and so like buoyant and joyful. And he turned and looked at me, and he's like, wow, you're really radiating today. And I was like, it was like one of those like nice moments, and we just had a very short interaction, and it was really beautiful. It wasn't about like your clothes look nice, which is a good compliment, but he was like, you're radiating, you're radiant. And I was like, wow, that is a really, really beautiful compliment to give someone. And so for me, it was just like this lovely testament of the energy that we carry. And how we have the ability to shift that energy, like we talked about last week, with getting out of the negative thinking pattern. So it's really interesting just to see that sort of domino effect, or that ripple that you create with the stone that is thrown in the water. Like you kind of get to choose what butterfly what you transmit and what you send out into the world. So I wanted to share that, and I'm looking down because I have notes, because I like to talk and I can get off topic, so I'm trying to improve, get better. So carrying on, just thinking about like the awareness of that energy. So checking in with yourself, tuning into where you're at, and deciding who you want to be each day. Like we all have patterns, we all have habits that we have been brought up with, that someone taught us, that society taught us, that parents taught us, that friends taught us. And sometimes those habits aren't serving us. So it's up to us to kind of like, is this making me feel good or bad? And just being aware of the energy that you're bringing into every situation, and slowing down enough to kind of do like a, trying to think of the right word. Oh, I know this word. Inventory. To do an inventory of the energy that you have. So what's your energy inventory in this moment for the next situation? When you wake up in the morning, before you interact with your partner or your family, etc. So energy inventory is really important, and a simple way to go into that space is just to close your eyes and go inward and think like, what's my energy inventory right now? Like, where am I at? How am I feeling? What can I do to bring more love, to bring more joy into this situation? So it's totally doable, and I think that's a really practical approach. And then thinking about your life as your medicine. So a lot of times, very often, things don't always work out the way that we want them to, or we expect them. So that's like, that could be seen as like problem number one, like letting go of expectations, right? But just seeing your life as your medicine. So things happen in life, and it's up to us to choose how we react to those situations, and seeing everything as medicine, as healing, as a space to learn and to grow from. So I think that's like a really beautiful and healthy way to see it, and it kind of helps us pivot away from the negative thinking patterns into, wow, this thing happened, it was sort of unfortunate, unexpected, dissatisfactory. And so seeing it as medicine, oh yeah, that wasn't what I wanted, but I really did learn a lot, or thank you for correcting me, I was wrong about that. And just kind of pivoting it all into a neutral or a positive space. And I think neutral is a good place to start, especially if you feel like you are more hardwired for negative thinking. I'm going to take a sip of my drink really quick. And then having tools. So The Secret is a book that's very popular, and a lot of people love it for like law of attraction and manifestation and all this stuff. And I read it, and I found it to be very beautiful, very helpful, very insightful and uplifting. In the book, they talk about this idea of secret shifters. So what are some things in your life that when you're in a negative thinking pattern or a negative loop, and you're not bringing your best, most vibrant energy to the situation, like what's a secret shifter? Meaning, what's a thing that you can do, say, think that will shift you out of your negative thinking patterns? So I think that's really cool, and that was one of the greatest takeaways from the book The Secret, was this idea of the secret shifter. So how can I take myself from a low vibratory energy to something that's high, that's joyful, that's happy or neutral? And for me, that was collecting quotes that were really beautiful, empowering, loving, and that made me feel like a beautiful, warm hug. That's the best way I can describe it. And then I also had a photo album in my phone of like, it just said, "Be happy." And the album was like all my most favorite and beautiful moments of my life, including when I got married, or some pictures with friends at some different festivals, and beautiful text messages that people have sent me. So sometimes we need a little bit of a little like, "Hey kid, it's gonna be okay" moment. So what are those secret shifters for you? What are the tools and tactics that you can employ to get you back into that high vibe state? So those are a few of mine that I really love. And then just for me also is coming back to those foundations like we talked about last week, knowing what is the foundation that I need to have in order to show up well. So like I mentioned last week, like working out, being in the body, eating well, enjoying things like ritual or routine. So things like my cacao practice or my meditation practice or yoga practice, walking, connecting with my mom, my dad, my sisters, etc. So there's all these things that it's almost like, I don't know if this is a good example, but like you have a big cup and you have like your 4 pillars, and they're all different like elixirs, or I'll use like herbal tea or something like that. And it's like you need equal parts of each of them to to calibrate yourself to your highest good. So I think whatever those are for you, I hope you can find them and search them out. But those are the ones for me right now in this moment. And then next I have is being the objective observer. So this is something we talked about too. So just kind of zooming out from your life and seeing yourself as this human on this planet that's literally spinning in the middle of the universe. Like, you're kind of a small, beautiful speck of dust if you think about it. And so it's like, how can you look at yourself in a more objective way to say, okay, I'm experiencing this feeling, I'm experiencing this trail of negative thoughts. It doesn't feel the greatest, but I know it's going to be over, and I recognize you, I see you. What do you need from me? I love you. It's going to be okay. Let's shift our energy. All this kind of ideas of like seeing it from an objective perspective, but also employing like healthy self-talk that's nurturing and that's loving. And next is knowing what daily habits are contributing towards the negative patterns. So sometimes we might not realize it, but certain things are building us up to be triggered. So anytime we're triggered is essentially a moment in time that we react in a negative way to a situation in life. So that's considered a trigger or something difficult that you need to deal with and maybe challenge or change your perspective on, and to maybe notice, wow, that really activated me in a way that I'm not comfortable with or that I don't feel happy with. And so how can I employ those secret shifters to see this trigger in a new light? So sometimes we can even practice the right language to use. So if you're in partnership and you get triggered by your partner, you could kind of write or journal the situation, or with maybe a parent, whoever it may be, just like, I get triggered when I'm told I'm doing something wrong, right? So that's pretty common. That's something I struggle with. So in my head or on paper, I could practice saying and thinking, wow, thank you for that suggestion. That was really helpful. Or, I'll think about it. You don't always have to be reactive and get upset. And I'm a work in progress, like I said, so this is helpful just to express that out loud. So how can we see whatever negative patterns are replaying in our life, and how can we mold them into being something different, or how can we take one habit and replace it with something new? So maybe our bad habit is, I'm trying to think of what's a good bad habit. Maybe overindulging in sugary food, like, I don't know, donuts or something like that. And so if that's a bad habit and we really we eat this thing and we feel so bad after we eat it. So the idea is you take that habit, you get it out of there, and you replace it with something else. So that's how we work with habits. This is also something I learned with the Happiness Lab class that I took during COVID. And the idea was, you can't just have a bad habit and get rid of it. You have to essentially swap it out with something better. So a good example for myself is like, a bad habit for me was coffee, because the caffeine makes me feel a little jittery. So I see it more as a treat. And so if I'm going out, on a vacation or a trip, I'll have a coffee if it feels like the right place. But in my day-to-day life, I've swapped out something that works better for me, and it kind of integrates more of a spiritual practice. And it's also a superfood is cacao. So for me, there was this idea of nourishing warm beverage, and I don't know that coffee is super nourishing, but it felt nourishing because it's earthy and it's delicious, and now I'm craving coffee. So thinking about that, oh wow, when I do this, I get jittery. Ooh, I don't like jittery because it makes me think of anxiety. Ooh, that also makes my chest feel tight, and that makes me think of anxiety too. So swapping it out with cacao is like a heart-opening experience. So I feel more grounded, I feel more rooted. I know when I'm drinking it, it's like medicine of the heart. And that feels good to me. And so when I have coffee, I try to do it for an absolute treat. If I know I'm going somewhere with amazing, delicious coffee, I'll be like, yes, sign me up. So swapping out those habits, those negative habits, with positive ones or neutral ones will be really helpful. Another good example could be like social media, maybe getting lost on like the Instagram feed or other things like that, and just is it really helping you or is it not helping you? So how can you turn that habit into something that's more fruitful or joyful. And one way you could do that is like, okay, I still want to go on this platform, but I notice that some of the people I follow don't make me feel happy. And so you can mute them, you can unfollow them, you can set a limit. Sorry, there's an ambulance going by. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, so you can turn it around, you can steer the ship in your own favor or flavor by unfollowing people who don't lift your spirits and bring you joy, either momentarily or permanently, or you can limit your time on this particular platform, and just identifying what those, for lack of a better word, toxic behaviors might be, and finding a healthy replacement. So another healthy replacement would be, sometimes in the past I would have liked to have used my phone at nighttime to learn things, to educate myself, and now I have a strict discipline of turning the phone off at like 8 p.m., sometimes 9. It just depends on the day and how late I'm going to stay up, but I'll read instead, I'll journal instead, I'll do I developed like a really nice, beautiful nightly routine that kind of helps me wind down and get myself set up for resting, for sleeping, for digesting my entire day, because we go through a lot in a day, even if we're not aware of it. So those are just a couple examples of some healthy swaps that I've done. And then next, I just want to talk about the ideas behind gratitude and intention. So gratitude is amazing, and it's something that's like always been trending, I think, for the past couple years and possibly more, but I've become especially aware of it over the past 2 years. And gratitude just helps us see the abundance in our lives. So a lot of times we can project out into the future and be like, oh, I don't have this thing, I need this other thing, I need that experience, blah, 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 blah. But instead we can use that energy and just kind of go inward, to take a space to be grateful for the things that we have, the things that we have done, the things that we have in the current moment. And sometimes it feels like we don't have everything we need, but we can also tune into this modern luxury of life. So like we lost our power a couple of days ago, and it's like, that's a luxury to have lighting and to have running water. And how often have I sat down in like my meditative space and been like, wow, I'm so grateful just to have running water, or to take a nice warm shower, or take a warm Epsom salt bath, or what have you. So we can fine tune and bring ourselves back to these very simple pleasures of life, and expressing gratitude for all things, and just seeing the abundance in our life. Because if we learn anything from books like The Secret, it's like attracts like. So bringing in more abundance as you notice your world around you, and being grateful. Like I'm always just so grateful for a journal. I love writing so much. Like I fill up journal after journal after journal, and I have like a section on my bookshelf like that big, and I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful for these. And it's simple, and it's even things like cacao, or I'm not sure what else, like this shirt that I got at Goodwill, or my sister made me this beautiful bracelet. So it's like the little things in life. It doesn't have to be the biggest, most grandest things. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this idea of intention. And so intention is really beautiful and quite curious. It's something that has helped me in a lot of ways. It helps me slow down. And so intention, I wrote a little bit about it, but it essentially creates a path for ourselves. It's like a blueprint or a blessing that we're creating in the moment. So if I'm able to slow down enough and be like, wow, I'm going to do something new in this day, what's my intention for that experience? And that new thing can be going into the store, going to talk to the neighbor, going to sit with myself, going to work on my business plan, going to connect with a friend. So it can be like slowing down enough. It's like if you imagine yourself as like this ball of light, right? Coming back to that theme of like the light we always carry, like we're this beautiful ball of light, and we're kind of like expanding our energy in all directions, and there's a lot of stimuli. But if we can bring all that back inside ourselves and think like, my intention for this video, my intention for this sharing is to be open, to be expressive, to share my truth, and to not judge myself in the process. So intentions help us slow down. They create a beautiful blessing or a blueprint for the path that we intend to take. And so even when you wake up first thing in the morning, you can think like, my intention today is to be open. And this idea of intention is actually something I've learned from working with cacao in cacao circles that I participate in. That's something that we always do. We say, we go through the ceremonial experience, and then we'll say, my intention today is ... And so this is something that has really served me as often as I'm able to be aware enough to stop and to slow down, because sometimes I'll be moving too fast that the intentions are literally out the window. So you have to be slow enough and you have to be aware enough to make that possible. But for a good example, last week a couple weeks ago, I met up with my dad, and so I was like, okay, we're two different energies coming together, and so that's going to be a shift. And so I kind of had to tune into myself and say, my intention for this experience is to be open, to be loving, and to come from a non-judgmental place. And that was just enough language and verbiage to come out to remind me, like, wow, I have this inner light that I always carry, and I can carry that in a very conscious way if I decide to. So again, this is something that I would love to be an expert and do it all the time, but I find that the more I'm able to cultivate these two tiers of gratitude and intention, that I'm in a much happier and more balanced place in my life. And so just carrying that intention without you slowing down enough. You can even make reminders on your phone that say, what is your intention, and have it pop up ever so often. So I like to do it right now in my practice, anytime I meet with someone new, or even when my husband and I haven't interacted much all day, and then suddenly we're going to interact, and I'll think oh, my intention is to just listen and to not react too quickly, or just be an observer. So it's just that idea of speaking, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but speaking a blessing. So that blessing that woman sent me at the farmer's market, oh, your outfit looks really nice. She said a blessing, and so an intention in my mind is also a blessing. My intention right now is to connect with the land and to be on the land and to appreciate the land, but also to make a heartwarming video to share with the people that I love. So I hope this inspires you and lifts you to remember the light that you always carry. It's always there regardless of if you can't see it, and it's just a matter of slowing down and tuning into yourself and remembering that you do carry that love and that light every day, all the time. Sometimes we just have to dig for it. So I hope this serves you in some way, and wishing you a beautiful, open-hearted kind of day today, and I'll look forward to connecting with you next week. Thank you so much.